Hi, I'm Melissa Bill, and welcome to the Business Roundup, where we catch up with the movers and shakers in the business world. Today, joining me is Lance Morgan. He's the founder and CEO of College Funding Secrets. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So, you've appeared on Fox Business and NASDAQ Studio discussing advanced college funding tactics. You were also a best-selling author. How did you get passionate about this area of investing?
Well, it's interesting because I went from the IT industry to the financial industry because I was passionate about money. But then I had 5 kids with my wife and I, so that made me passionate about college funding. So having 5 kids would do that to you.
Definitely. Yeah, I know. I have one and that's already expensive.
Yes.
So perfect. What are some of the can you walk us through some of the strategies that you kind of I know we were talking a little bit before. We were talking about like life insurance and then insurance being something like as a vehicle right now. Can you walk us through some of the strategies that you help high end worth families or even just regular families that are trying to navigate, just paying for college and, investing for their future?
For sure. Yeah. We teach families how to use, real estate to pay for college, but the life insurance is a big part of that because your income and your assets are a big factor in any financial aid you might get. So you save all this money into a college savings plan or like a 529 account, and then turns out you're going to get penalized for having all that money saved when it comes to qualify for financial aid. So life insurance is another common way to save for college because it doesn't count against you on the financial aid. We also like real estate because real estate will give you tax savings, and tax savings can reduce your income, which can actually help you qualify for financial aid as well. Because if you lower your income and you don't show as many assets, then that's how you can maximize all that free money.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And now, when you're talking about real estate, what types of investments are like something that you normally kind of like, when you're talking to clients, you kind of suggest?
Yeah, so we like to use the short-term rentals because they allow you to reduce your active income. So if you have a W-2 job or 1099 income, you can offset that W-2 income by purchasing like an Airbnb, for example. So if you buy an Airbnb or if you buy a house and set it up as an Airbnb, you're able to reduce your income significantly by purchasing that house. But that house not only reduces your income, which helps you to get free money for college, but it also offsets your taxes by about the same cost as college. And so you could get what we call tax scholarships, which is basically free money by saving taxes. And then, of course, we have the cash flow from that real estate to cover the cost of college.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. And now I know you were talking a little bit about it. Can you discuss the creative college funding system that you developed?
Yeah, so creative college funding, we always say that there are 3 ways to pay for college. The first way is you just take your savings and just pay cash. Or maybe you take cash flow. Maybe you live on beans and rice for a while and you just pay cash, for your kids' college. But either way, if you do, of course, that money's gone. The second option is you take out loans. You pay interest on those loans and you pay back those loans over time. And then when you're done, the money's gone, right? So in both scenarios, you're either going to pay cash, drain your savings, the money's gone, or you pay back college loans and the money's gone. The third way is to get creative. We call that the creative funding option, which is where you do things like the real estate, for example, where you could take the same amount of money that you were going to pay for college and instead buy real estate with it. And then, of course, that cash flow from the real estate still pays for college. But once college is paid off, the cash flow continues. And that's why we tell families that our mission is to help every family send any kid to the school of their choice and still increase their retirement income. It's like having your cake and eating it too, because you can use the real estate income to cover college, but you can also use that same real estate income to pay for your retirement as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know because even if you have to pay for college on your own, you're still paying it probably many years later.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It
Yes,
is
most families are taking out loans. Yes.
for sure. And now, how can education be turned? Well, you kind of talked about that, a catalyst into lasting generational wealth. So you kind of talked to that a little bit about that, where it's going to continue after your child or your kid goes to college and everything. But how can that be turned into like a generational situation?
Yeah, well, first of all, I admire any parent that makes the sacrifices to help their child get an education, and whether that's a formal education or whether that's going into the trades or whatever the case may be, anytime you help your child get that rewarding career, that will help them financially, obviously that's great. And I respect families that make those sacrifices because it is expensive, no matter what no matter what way you look at it is it's expensive to help these kids get an education. But giving kids an education is going to, first of all, affect generations, with that education. However, I think we all know that the education system doesn't really help families to generate wealth. There's not a lot of financial strategies talked about in the formal education process. You could get a PhD and not learn even some of the basics about money and generating wealth. Now, there's a lot of ways, to generate wealth, but obviously one of those would be real estate. And so if you as a family start, even if you've never invested in real estate before, if you start investing in real estate for the purpose of helping your kids pay for college, then you can teach them how you did that. You can teach them how to invest in real estate, and then they can set themselves up for several generations. And the reason why I say several generations with real estate is because when you have a 401k or when you have traditional money, when you die, a lot of that money is gone or a lot of it gets taxed, and just not as much passes on to the next generation. Whereas with real estate, when you die, that cash flow keeps coming. The assets continue to grow in value. My dad passed away from an accident at age 72, but most of his money was coming in from real estate. So my mom got the exact same amount of money. And the month after he passed away, her paycheck, from the real estate didn't stop. Now when my mom passes away, that same cash flow from the real estate will go to us kids, and so on and so forth for several generations. These assets continue to produce forever, technically.
Right. So it's one of those things that's definitely, a safer. I know because I think it was a pension or something that my grandmother had from the hospital. All those things are still can be, kind of up for grabs. And, there's still, like you're saying, there's tax, situations on that. So at least real estate is something that is really like a safeguard when you're talking about like a generational trying to hand it down. Right.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great if we could still be receiving our grandparents' pension income?
Yes, I know. Well, I know it used to be, what was it, Social Security? My
Yeah,
friend, her dad, I think she was getting it for some reason because he was already older when she was young. He was
yeah,
already able to, so he could pass that along to her. But yeah, it would be if you could,
yeah,
pass that along as well because you pay into it. Maybe you didn't use your Social Security till maybe you
yeah,
like 5 years, and your life was cut short, but your kids should be able to, get that. That's true.
yeah. Yep, that's true.
And I know a lot of people were even talking about, like, with generational wealth, like you were saying too, just educating the younger generations, on financial literacy is an important thing, and they don't teach that in school. So you think that's definitely important to kind of hand down as well?
Absolutely. You can go and learn how to be an engineer, but you're not going to learn about money until you learn the hard way. I mean, we're working with families in their 50s, generally speaking, and they wished they would have learned a lot of this, 20 years ago. And so I think helping these kids get off to a good start, after they graduate college, they get that first, job and they get that real income coming in. Well, what's the smartest way to save for retirement? Is it really the 401k? I think if you do the research, the 401k isn't, as great as a lot of people think. In fact, it was designed to replace the pension. And I think most people would rather have a pension, than their 401k.
I know, definitely. Yeah, because again, there's a lot of limitations on the 401k, and you get penalized unless you, put it in a different, you have to flip it over to an IRA, or you get penalized with taxes even if you try to deduct it earlier, which I think is to me is kind of absurd because it's your money,
Yes.
but
Yep.
you still have to pay on it. And I know we were talking about, so, you have families that you're working with that are like in their 50s. How, or like, what are some of the ways that you're helping them without having to like sacrifice their retirement funds and their security? You were saying that, and I guess that's what the real estate does is help them kind of have something to pull that
Mhm.
money from to pay for the education.
Yeah, I mean, it's like having your cake and eating it too, right? Like these families are traditionally draining college savings, retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, cash flow, spouses are getting extra jobs, whatever the case may be, they're doing whatever they can to help their kids pay for college, but then all that money is gone. And none of that money is going to still be there in retirement. In fact, there's a third cost of college that we talk about that's the secret cost of college, and that's the cost of missing out. The cost of missing out on what that money could have done for you in retirement. If you help your kids pay for college, that's great, but that money is no longer working for your retirement. So, what is that cost of missing out? In other words, what's the opportunity cost of what that money could have done for your retirement? Just to give you an example, if you have a sophomore in college or high school, if a sophomore and senior in high school, so two kids, 2 years apart, senior in high school, sophomore in high school, okay, and let's say they go to a low priced state school. That's still going to be an average of $200,000 for that family. That's the national average. Each family pays about $200,000 for their kid to go to college. Well, if you borrow that money and pay back the loans, or if you paid $200,000 in cash, that same amount of money could have been about $1 million 20 years later in your retirement. So the reality of it is paying $200,000 for your child's education is going to cost you $1 million in retirement. So that's the actual secret cost of college, is the cost of missing out on your retirement. Now, what if you took that same $200,000, the same $200,000 and put it down on $1 million rental property, okay? That $1 million rental property could generate enough income to cover the loan payments. It's those college loan payments, not just the mortgage. In addition to the mortgage on that $1 million property, net cash flow would be enough to cover the college loan payments after the kid graduates college. Then once those college loan payments are paid off, that cash flow keeps coming for the family's retirement.
Yeah, that's definitely, I wish I would have known more about that too. I mean, it's never too late either.
Uh,
And I know you have now, what's the book called?
So my book was called The Retirement Scholarship Strategy, but I wrote that back in 2018.
Okay.
And that talks more about using the life insurance in college funding. And so my most recent trainings and webinars on college or on the real estate and how to use real estate for high income families and real estate to get free money for college and to create these tax scholarships and everything. All of that information is at collegefundingsecrets.com.
Okay, perfect. And if people wanted more information on you as well or get in contact, that would be the best way to reach you.
Yeah, it's all at collegefundingsecrets.com. We have lots of free resources. In fact, we have some software that we've put over $500,000 into our proprietary software that helps families navigate the college costs, calculate the college costs, estimate the free money, that you can get for college, estimate those future loan payments. You can look up schools, see how much each of the schools are going to give in free money. You can narrow down your school list. We've got some really cool software that we normally charge $97 a month. But if you go to collegefundingsecrets.com, we'll get you free access to that software for life.
That's awesome. Perfect. I'm gonna check it out, definitely.
Oh,
That I have a 13-year-old, so I have a little ways to go, but
that's perfect timing.
it's coming up faster than
Yeah,
I'm probably like thinking.
yes, it will be here soon.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us today. It's definitely, I've learned a lot too, and that's the one thing I do love is like talking to like people like you that you really can like learn something like that can help you, in your future and with your investments and things like that. So I really appreciate you joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining the Business Roundup, where we always try to bring you interviews with some of the leading people in business, whether it be technology, finance, or energy. I hope you tune in. I hope you subscribe and listen, and we'll give you updates for new interviews that are coming up. Until next time, I'm Melissa Bill.